We're here. Oh, welcome everybody. So I'll just start by saying, we'll go to the next slide. My name is Sterling Chin. I am a senior developer advocate at Postman, and I am so excited to be here and talking about the Composable API ecosystem and the Model Context Protocol. Is there a... Oh, I have this one. Sweet. Well, there you go. That's me. If you want to go, I have a website. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Everywhere else, you can go to that QR code. I'll share that at the end of the slide as well. Okay. So for many of my colleagues, if you've seen me on Zoom, this is my background. I love Lego. I love space too, but the real what I'm talking about here is Lego. Lego has been something that is so important to myself, and I've thankfully been able to pass that love on to my children. And when you buy a Lego set off the shelf, you get directions, you put it all together, but all the pieces are composable. See where I'm going there? We're talking about composable, Lego. Trust me, this is going to continue going on the whole time. But if you're my son, and you've got a whole bin full of Legos, instead of following directions, he sees something that is completely amazing. It's infinite possibilities. So I'm actually going to show you some of his creations. One, because I'm just really proud of him. He builds mechs, and they're just random pieces of, they're just random Lego, and they're fantastic. I love them. He uses all these random pieces to compose a mech out of thin air. Two of my favorites. On the left side, that's my desk. And he came in one day and he goes, "Dad, I made your desk." And it's got my, up on top, it's got my webcam, it's got my podcast mic. That is the keyboard and the mouse, as well as my swivel chair. And then, because I'm a huge Trekkie, he made the Starship Enterprise out of 2 pieces of Lego with a stand. So that imagination and being able to compose and understand that all the pieces are there, you can build something out of them. That's what we're going to continue talking about today. So let's talk about building composable API ecosystems. Today I want to show you, I'm going to give you some examples from companies that have transformed their businesses by thinking in building blocks. We're going to explore how AI is becoming the ultimate composer through Model Context Protocol, as I've said. And I'm going to give you a practical playbook at the very end, something that you can actually take home. Hopefully, by the time you get there, you'll have your cameras out. You can take a couple of these pictures and take it back to your teams. When I started my career, when I was an engineer, everything was in monoliths. And some of us are still in monoliths. They were big, beautiful, and terrifying applications that could break sometimes at a moment's notice. Then came microservices, and they were all the rage. And for many of us, they still are. And I thought, and many of us also thought, that they were going to solve our API problems. Well, we don't need a monolith, we'll go to all microservices. As an industry, we got really good at breaking things apart, but not really well. Now we just have a big bin of Legos. What does that mean? So now, what I want to talk about is, instead of breaking things apart for the fun of it, we want to design APIs to be combined from the ground up. I saw a camera, so I can go back and take it. Cool. So I have a 10-second problem. At a previous company, our front-end load time took 10 seconds. And this was not consumer. These were our customers who relied on our services to work with their customers. And we had 10 seconds. They would load up, and I just watched that waterfall happen. And it was because we had 40+ API calls all happening at the same time. We had user data, we had preferences, notifications, activity feed. All of that were making individual round trips. But something I want to point out here, we could talk and say, oh, they're bad. No, the engineers who made those APIs are some of the best engineers I ever worked with. They are fantastic. So why was it taking 10 seconds for 40 different API calls to run? Okay, when we tested each one of their APIs individually, they all passed. They were all within the threshold of somewhere around 500 milliseconds. So we were using Postman at my previous company, and we were testing in Postman, and it happened. So why the problem? This happened in around 2020. A colleague of mine, his name is Andrew, and we were on the engineering foundations team, and we were tasked to fix the problem. CTO came to me and said, Sterling, you two go fix it. How? What do you mean by fix it? He goes, no, we just need our loading to be dropped significantly. So what Andrew and I did is we spent 2 months. We were all in lockdown anyway, so it worked out. We locked ourselves in on a Zoom call, and we transitioned our APIs to a complete ecosystem that was composable. Now, we were already using GraphQL, so I'm going to talk about GraphQL here for a second. This is not the main purpose of the talk. I personally love GraphQL. So we were able to take all those 40 different API calls that were in GraphQL, and we were able to compose them. We took them, we built multiple fragments, we passed everything through, and before we knew it, we were able to take that result down from 10 seconds to 1 second. It's the same stuff, it's all the same data, nothing was changing, but how we composed our API ecosystem made a difference. But again, I don't want to talk just solely about GraphQL. You can do similar things with HTTP as well. Okay, Postman does a lot of case studies, and I want to do a huge shout out to the case study team, because what you're going to see here on my 4 pillars of composability, this is all from them. But that says 4+1. I'm adding another one. So please, team, forgive me. I'm adding one more pillar to composable APIs. The first one is reusability. Reusability, you build once and you use everywhere. When you can create an API, when you create an API, you're not just solving a problem, you're creating a building block that can be used by other teams. So you have to think about not just your team, but other teams in mind. Second, extensibility. Easy to modify, easy to upgrade. Your APIs should be kind of like smartphones. They get better with updates, and if applicable, third parties can extend them and use them in their own ways. Third, they should be independent. You should be able to have a separation of concerns with your APIs. So if you've got one API that is your authentication, it shouldn't be going and getting user preferences. You should have separations of concerns. Fourth is speed. And this is a big one, because this is what businesses care about. Speed of development, speed of innovation, and speed to market. When your APIs compose well, building new features goes from months to days. And we're doing this at Postman. We're not perfect at it. We're still on this journey with everyone else. And the last one, if you can tell by my MCP shirt and my love of AI, it's AI native interoperability. Because our APIs are no longer, or for not much longer, going to be just consumed by humans. They're going to be consumed by AI, and we need to be ready for that. Okay, so let's talk about the hidden reality behind the Composable API ecosystem. When we typically think about APIs, we think about that little bit above the water, our external APIs. Those are the ones that get all the attention. They get all the documentation, because of course, third-party companies or third parties are going to be integrating with your APIs. So those are the ones that most of us care about. But that's not the real problem, right? I mean, our internal systems have hundreds or maybe sometimes thousands of different APIs. We're talking database connections, microservices, legacy systems. Okay, how many of us are still using Kotlin internally, right? Oh, I don't think Postman's using Kotlin anymore, but there's still, like if you're in fintech, you're still using old services and you still have to be able to use them. These services are is where all of the real business logic live. And these are the ones that I would argue are some of the most important. So I'm going to give you two different examples of organizations that have made the transition into making composable API ecosystems today. And one of the things I hear constantly from engineering managers and developers around the world is, you know what? My internal service is just faster to build it from scratch. Because the team that built it, either they're too busy, the docs are shit, or non-existent, right? The engineer that built it, maybe he's not at the company anymore. Maybe she's on another team and doesn't have time to deal with it. So I hear this on a regular basis. This is a problem that we're all facing. So part of the work, or part of the playbook that I'm going to share later is something that will help with these problems. Let's start talking about some real-world transformations. I'm going to share two. One is PayPal. The other is Built Technologies. I actually met one of the PM from PayPal. She's in another talk, so I'm glad you're here. She's over there. She heard, I gave her some of my notes on what I was going to talk about around PayPal. But before we dive in, let's talk about a couple numbers. 74% of organizations now consider themselves to be API first. APIs are driving 75% of revenue for 21% of companies. Let's think about that. 21% of companies, for them, their APIs drive 75% of the revenue. So this is not, your APIs are that much more important. And for those who are using, excuse me, for those of you who are using, a composable API ecosystem, you're 80% faster feature implementation. So those features that Abhinav got up on stage and talked about today, so I'm going to show you the MCP Builder and the MCP Client today. Those were shipped in a month's time. That's because we're working on our own internal API ecosystem. Okay, so a few years ago, another story, I spent 4 to 6 hours babysitting pipelines to ship anything to prod. That might sound somewhat familiar to you, right? Even a small bug, just a small bug fix, would take hours just to go through all the pipelines. And good luck if when I wanted to ship that bug, good luck if I was trying to ship that on a Thursday or Friday, because everyone was dogpiling it. Everyone was piling in. And when I say babysitting, I'm quite literally saying I just had my pipelines on my screen because I had flaky tests. Flaky tests were pass or fail. They would happen, and 99% of the time it was because there was a problem with the APIs. There was a race condition. One passed and one failed all at the same time. And I have to restart, and it sucked. So, and I should say, the companies that focus on their API ecosystem increase productivity for their teams. So let's start with PayPal, because their transformation is absolutely amazing. PayPal processes billions of dollars through their APIs. They've got 435 million active accounts globally. And they realized that their API experience was, suffice to say, a little challenging. This was 3 or 4 years ago. Developers were taking hours to make their first successful API call. Hours. Think about that for a moment when you think about the developer experience. You're excited to integrate a new payment system, you're building something new, and now you're stuck in docs hell or just not even getting a 200 OK. External partners started avoiding PayPal integrations because of this friction. Internal teams were duplicating work because, again, their APIs were not easily visible. So PayPal made a radical decision. They went API first, and not just in their architecture, but in their developer experience. So how many of you have actually used PayPal's API? A few here. things have changed quite a bit, right? You go in and you open up their public API network, their public workspace, and it's all there. They created what they call a premier developer experience. Every API comes with ready-to-use Postman collections, interactive sandboxes, clear documentation that actually works, and one-click credential setup. And the results were really amazing. Time to first call went from hours to 1 minute. Testing time dropped from hours to minutes again. Developers started to save hours per week each just because of the better tooling. And the best thing, and this is one I like, I don't think this has a, nope, I don't, oh, there we go. I got my laser pointer. If you were in my other session, you'll understand I love my laser pointer. I'm a teacher in a past life. Their public workspace on Postman has 92,000 forks. You don't get to 92,000 forks if your APIs aren't great. And they made that transition. PayPal CEO summed it best when he said, being API first has yielded increased flexibility, accelerated time to market, and scalability. And PayPal didn't just build good APIs. They built composable experiences. Every API comes with everything you need to use right out of the box. Okay, let's talk about Build Technologies. Build Technologies, just give you a little bit of background, they are a digital provider for construction finance. And they help lenders and borrowers make better decisions. Most companies, so for most companies, we treat our internal APIs like plumbing. You build it once, you forget about it, and fingers crossed it never breaks. Build Technologies used this insight. They said, what if we treated our internal APIs like products? So Build Technologies realized that their APIs were strategic assets that need consistent maintenance and scaling. So with this insight in mind, Build Technologies approached this head on. They created an internal playbook of repeatable API calls. Think about that. Repeatable is the key word there. They weren't just building APIs, they were building patterns that could be reused across multiple scenarios. And they used Postman flows to create visual low-code API orchestrations. Non-technical members on their team could literally drag and drop API calls to create those workflows. Development got faster with fewer errors. When you have repeatable patterns, you stop reinventing the wheel. Your development teams can move faster and faster. Cross-team collaboration improved, and teams were now speaking the same API language. PayPal and Build Technologies don't just build APIs, they built an ecosystem. They created environments where APIs compose naturally, where discovery is easy, and where reuse is the default. They made external APIs and internal APIs, internal services, composable. And that in turn transformed their entire engineering organization and how they work. So PayPal made a premier developer experience. Build Technologies made an internal API empire. Okay, let's jump to the fun stuff. Now, this is where, when we start talking about composable APIs, we start talking about APIs, I'm going to start talking about MCP. Anyone on my team knows I am the MCP junkie. Again, by my shirt. So a little bit of history about MCP. I'm going to go a little bit deeper here. In November of 2024, Anthropic, are the makers of Claude, they released the MCP spec. They said, we're going to build, this is MCP. They released it to the world, and it started to get a little bit of traction. Fast forward to March 26th of this year. So a few months later, Sam Altman comes out and says, OpenAI, we're adopting MCP. A few days later, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, said, to MCP or not MCP, that is the question. and he let it out and tweeted that out. And I remember looking at this going, this is going to be a complete crazy storm. And sure enough, a few weeks later, he came back and said, love the feedback, to MCP it is. So now we have the big AI players on the market, all adopting MCP. We've not had this rapid standardization in I don't know how many years. Now, if you've ever seen that XKCD comic, we have 14 competing standards. We need to make one competing standard to cover them all, and now we've got 15 competing standards. I love that one, but I also don't think that necessarily applies to MCP. Okay. So MCP has been likened to the USB-C for AI. And I don't necessarily really like it, but this is about as good of an explanation as I can make, as I've been able to come up with. We have so many different cables in our bins. I've got a bin underneath my desk that has got cables that I wish I could throw away, but you know how it is. You never throw away that cable, because just in case you did a micro USB or a printer cable, you're never going to get rid of them. But we have all of those, and those are dedicated for one specific purpose. With MCP, you have the USB-C. And what that means is, if I'm using OpenAI, or I'm using OpenAI, Claude, or I'm using Gemini or others that are adopting it, I now have one standard that I can write. I can make sure my servers are going to have the same three things. They're all going to work together, and I can take that server from OpenAI to Claude, and I know it's going to work. That's just like how USB-C works. I've got a USB-C, it works on my Mac, it works on my Pixel, it works on my headphones, my laptop, and everywhere else. There are three types of capabilities that MCP servers offer. We have tools, which are really just the API calls, the function calls, or in this case, we're running code. Just think about it like that. You're running your code. Next, you have prompts. Those are the prompts that you're going to use in very specific cases. I've yet to find a really good use case for this, but don't take my word for it. If you have a great use case, please come find me. I'd love to talk to you after. And lastly are resources. This is the one that I love the most, as much as I love the tools. Resources allow you to bring in some type of resource to your code, whether it is code snippets, to your MCP server. Whether it's code snippets, it is sometimes, for me, as I write a lot, I spend a lot of time writing talks. I have my old talks that I've given, and that is used as a resource in one of my MCP servers. And to date, I think I'm now over 100 MCP servers created. Not 100 MCP servers being used, but quite a few created. So why does MCP matter? Let's talk about Lily. Lily is a product manager, and she's overworked, underpaid, and she's got high anxiety like pretty much all of us, right? We don't have enough time in my day to do my job. So she's juggling. Yeah, by the way, AI made this, so excuse the really bad logos. But she's using GitHub, Jira, Figma, Confluence, Gmail, and she's trying to make them all work together. So before MCP, she would say, oh, I'm going to use ChatGPT, I'm going to use GPT. So she would make, or she would have someone make a custom integration for her. But then if she wanted to move to another model, you'd have to make another custom integration. But with MCP, Lily can just take those integrations, those MCP servers, and transition those. So now she can go to her preferred AI model. Maybe some of the models are Claude 4 Opus. Maybe some of them are GPT 3.5. I don't know anyone who's still using that. All right, let's get some demo time. For those in the back, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. All right. Oh, actually, I apologize. Oh, yep. You are seeing my screen. Okay, cool. All right. Let me clean this up a little bit. All right. Well, that's just changing it. Okay. So I built an MCP server. This is connected to Claude. This is real time, so I'm hoping that my MCP server actually works. It worked about an hour ago when I tried it. I'm going to go in, and I have this connected to, so there's no web search. I have not implemented any other connections here. I have my personal Google Calendar. And this is connected just to my Google Calendar, so I'm going to ask it, what's on my calendar? Wow, you know how you can't type when everyone's watching, when one person's watching? What's on my calendar today? By the way, if you see right over there, I had quite a few random, I just had, made a bunch of random things to do. So we broke the dev environment this time, or who broke the dev environment this time? I did put the keynotes here, so I did attend the keynotes. We had a bug triage, and at 10:30, I had a post-mortem of why we sent 10,000 test requests to production. Okay, well, that's great. Now it's connected. But here's the fun part. Hey, can you add my talk Composable API Ecosystems and MCP to my calendar from 3 to 3:45 today? And all goes well. Right there, you're going to see something pop up. Boom. That's how fast MCP is working. Now my AI is working for me. This is kind of a gimmicky idea, right? I'm just using Google's APIs. But think about your internal APIs, the ones that are behind your firewalls and that. If you wanted to build an MCP server that was connected to some of your internal services, you could. Not saying data analysts are going to go away, but there are points where you could connect to, you could connect to data sources and ask AI to just help you understand some things. Okay, I think I'm going to go back to my screen if that's okay. People in the back. Put my slides back on, because what I do have, I don't trust the demo gods, and I have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to skip through some of these. I do have an MCP server that I created that is connected to Postman's docs. And with that, it gets all the most updated information whenever I need it. And with that, I can now share that with my team. Okay, I have some people on my team who are newer to Postman who don't know all of the technicalities of what Postman is able to do. So I'm toying with the idea of making a MCP server that they can use to just double check questions. Like if customers are asking us questions, if people in the community, Discord, by the way, we're going to talk about that in a moment. My favorite, I don't think that's going to play, but I have a 5th grader. And the thing with him, or the thing with 5th graders, if there's any parents in here, you know that you get all those email or those newsletters over and over and over again. I made with that Gmail MCP server, I just dropped the newsletter in. There's like 20 pages of newsletters. I'm like, just make sure everything is on there. Okay, so. Is this, for those in the back, are we going to be able to play this? It should it was sent to automatically play. If not, I can pull it up on my computer. Again, technical difficulties, everybody. I'll do a jig. What was that? Use my computer. Got it. All right. We're going back to my computer. And because I've got it, I'm just going to open up. Where is it? There we go. I'm just going to open this up. Here we go. Cool. So Abhinav shared this earlier. You have the API build or the MCP Builder. You're going to go to, well, it now says build MCP servers. This is an older one. You go through, I'm going to pick Slack, Salesforce, and I think Stripe. And you go in, you just click the services you want. I'm going to go ask Salesforce. Let's get Salesforce on there. Cool. So I'll grab user information. Let's grab the tags. We'll be able to pull all of that. We're going to add that to our MCP server. And now I'm going to pull on Slack. We'll pull all the information I need. And then before you know it, I'm just going to now export all of this as an MCP server. So instead of having to do all of this by hand, instead of trying to make this, write all the code for it, Postman has been kind enough to actually build this for you. And one of the things that I do, that's the end of the video, one of the things that I like to do is I like to rename my server to whatever I'm using. Once you've built that and you've actually deployed it, you can use Postman's new MCP client to test it. So you don't have to go back and forth with whatever AI you're using. So here, going to go in. Because this is running on my computer, I'm going to type node, and I'm going to get the path to the MCP server. And you'll see all of those are now available. This is literally the same one. I literally exported it, cut the video, and then started to shoot another video. And now I can do all of that. We'll put in the price, quantity, 42 for any Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fans out there. 42 is the answer. Thank you. I get, there are good people out there who remember Hitchhiker's Guide. So now then I can run and test the MCP server without having to restart Claude over and over and over again. That's been my biggest hang-up with MCP being used by Claude, OpenAI, and them. You have to restart, you have to quit Claude and then reopen it just to reload the MCP servers. No, I can test it here, check, make sure it's all connected, everything's working, get the tool calls running, and it's all good to go. All right, I can go back to my slides now, if that's okay. No worries. Oh, that transitioned so much faster. Thank you. It's not moving forward. Oh, there we go. All right. I probably have to run this one too. Geez, I keep forgetting about that. I'm just going to explain this one because I recognize we're running out of time. So with Postman Flow Actions, one of the most powerful things that I'm able to do with MCP and Flow Actions is without having to change my MCP code, without having to redeploy the code, rebuild it, redo everything, I can go into I can deploy it once as a flow action, and anything I edit on the screen, and so anything I edit inside my flow, there we go. Anything I edit and redeploy is redeployed without having to redeploy code. It's just at a push of a button inside of Postman, I'm redeployed. It's so easy to do this, and the possibilities are infinite, especially when your APIs are nicely composed. All right, so let's talk about the Composable API Playbook. This is where you're going to want to take pictures if you want this for later. So I break this down into 3 different settings, or 3 different time periods. Week 1, that's where you discover your reality. You're going to pick your 3 most critical APIs. Just start with the 3. And for each one of those APIs, check it against an OpenAPI spec. Check the documentation. Is it human readable or AI readable? That may be you literally just put it into OpenAI or ChatGPT or Claude and say, can you read this? Make sure you understand the current consumers of it. Is it external consumers, internal consumers? Who are the consumers? Check the composability potential and document what you learn. This is the key point here because everything builds on to the next. On month 1, this is where we build on that foundation. You've created an evaluation template from your learnings of the original 3 that you tested. And now take that on, take 3 new APIs every week. This is slow, but this is not meant to, I'm not trying to get you to do this overnight. I understand that a lot of these legacy systems are going to take time. So for each one of those APIs, add it to a Postman workspace. Okay? You can call it, whatever you want, Composable API Ecosystem. Generate your first MCP server. That is, if it's going to be externally used, if it's going to be, consumed by an AI or something. And then test AI interactions. Again, those the bottom 2, or the generate with your MCP server and test, is really just meant to be if that AI or if that API is going to be consumed by an AI. And finally, you're going to establish at the end of that first month your API style guide. And then quarter 1. This is where you scale the ecosystem. I love this. I love seeing all the pictures, all the cameras. I'll do a peace sign here. This is where you assign APIs to product owners. You implement them into your CI/CD pipeline, do spec validations, documentation checks, security scanning, continued MCP compatibility testing, create internal API catalogs. That's the big one. We talked about that. And then if you are going to submit or if you're going to have these externally used by people, by external users, you could submit them to Postman's MCP directory, and we'll put that in. And I want you to measure, similar to what PayPal did, time to first call, reuse rate, and AI success rate. Okay, there are some essential design principles for humans and machines. And I'm going to skip over these a little bit. Clear specifications, interactive documentation, consistent patterns, and semantic naming. Now, specifically when we're talking about AI, semantic naming is so much more important, because the more you can describe, AI understands patterns, and it's not going to understand PO, new, V2. It doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay. Start today. We all started with Lego blocks. We all started with Legos, and those little perfect little connections, those little nubs, those are the MCP servers. That's the MCP connection. Your APIs those are your API blocks. Companies like PayPal and Built Technologies have figured this out. They've stopped building monoliths. They've started building complete ecosystems. Okay, so over the last few weeks, Postman in our Postman community on Discord, we've been running a challenge. And I said the winner of the challenge I would announce here on stage. What we were doing is show us your MCP servers. So if you're on Discord, if you're not on Discord, you should be. We ran this challenge, and so congratulations to Imber. She's on Discord. She shared this over with us. And you can see that it's doing AT Proto documentation. All right, so one of the other ones, join the conversation over on a Discord server. We're trying to build a larger community of MCP builders, but also Postman. If you're building in Postman, whatever you're in Postman, whatever questions you have around Postman, this is where you're going to connect with me, you're connect with the other developer advocates on our team, and others at Postman. Sometimes even Abhinav will pop in. Okay. Thank you so very much. Thank you for dealing with the technical difficulties earlier. My name is Sterling. Again, I am so happy to be here. If you have any questions, please feel free. We've run out of time for Q&A. I'll be off the stage a little bit, and I'm going to plug this. If you would like my awesome shirt, you can get it on my website. Just go to the shop there. Okay, thank you very much.